The Juneau World Affairs Council and Veterans for Peace Chapter 100, in collaboration with KTOO, present the 2025 Juneau World Affairs Forum, Unratified, the International Law of the Sea Treaties, and their potential for protecting Arctic resources and cultures. In this lecture, An Orientation of Northern Waters, Captain Steve White provides a visual depiction of marine traffic through the Arctic Ocean and Bering Sea. Captain White is Executive Director of the Marine Exchange of Alaska and a retired Coast Guard captain with years of experience in Alaska waters.
All right. Well, ahoy and good afternoon. Thanks for the introduction and the video. That was pretty classy there, Bruce. I also appreciate you telling everybody where the exits and the bathroom are right before I speak. So it's great to be here. Steve White, I retired Coast Guard, did 31 years with Coast Guard. I retired here out of Juneau as the captain of the port. And now I'm at the Marine Exchange of Alaska. Been there for about 4 years as the executive director. And I love Alaska. Being in the Coast Guard really afforded me an opportunity to sail and operate all around the world, everywhere from the Middle East to off the coast of South America and Central America, conducting operations, East Coast. But Alaska, I did 7 tours up here. This was far and above, in my opinion, as a sailor and an operator. There's no place better. The challenges up here are immense. It's a great place if you want to work in somewhere that's going to challenge you and challenge a crew. It also is so beautiful and so rich with resources. And then the people up here. Because of all that, it requires a certain kind of spirit and cooperation because we don't have a lot of schlitz up here to get the job done. So we really got to work together to make things happen. And for this talk today, that little circle there, one of the definitions of the Arctic, which goes all the way down, covers the Aleutian chain, the Bering Straits, and kind of the top of the world view that we're looking at. Everything I said about being a beautiful and harsh and challenging place with great people is super true about this region also. So I think it's only natural I talk about the maritime and the importance of the blue economy. You've heard stats on how important shipping is to our world, our connectivity, prosperity, national security of nations, the amount of goods that move across the water, and really what connects our world together is shipping. And it's only growing, and the importance of it is felt quite often through natural disasters, conflicts. We feel the impacts during those times, but when it's running smooth, we don't really think about it. We don't think about all those dots, which is just a snapshot in time of what's going on out on the water. For those of you, I know we have some military folks, sea lanes of communication is kind of the military term that we talk about and use that as how important that is and how important that is to not only keeping things running, but important to protect. This kind of just highlights when one thing happens in one part of the world, that it has massive impacts in others. I think of the Evergreen. You may or may not know about that, a ship that jammed up in the Suez Canal. Took a long time, over a week, to get that thing out of there, going on to a month. Billions of dollars of impact from one ship in one waterway. Supply chains were interrupted. The impacts of just one little incident on the shipping lanes has massive impact. So it is a system, and you need to think about this. If you're ever going to talk about one little portion, you need to think how it is connected with the rest of the system. So as we get ready to talk about the Arctic, these are choke points, core routes with choke points and secondary routes. And if you look way up in the left-hand corner, you'll see a little yellow circle, and it's labeled as a secondary route. That's the Bering Strait. And this highlights that this is important, and kudos to the World Affairs Council here for putting this together to talk about what goes on near that little choke point up there. So as we look at the top of the world view down, these are kind of the routes that people will talk about and they'll use in vernacular. The red is the Northern Sea Route along Russia's coast. That was a great introduction video that we heard. Yeah, you heard some stuff about Russia there. The kind of across the top there, the Transpolar Sea Route, which isn't really a heavily used or really effective route to use right now at this point with the amount of ice cover we have. And then the Northwest Passage, which you can read a lot about the Northwest Passage. It is used a little. It's got a lot of challenges still. And Lawson Bergam wrote a recent article on this. This is still not an effective route that is like a mainstream route that's going to be used anytime in the real near future. It's not just about the routes that take us through Arctic and that connectivity of sea lanes of communication. It's what's up there. And this was touched on in the video too that we watched. This place is a mother lode of resources. And the race for these resources has become more and more important as time goes on and things get depleted, and there are lots of eyes on this area. And I think that will come into some of the conversations and some of the presentations that you hear later on, but there's a lot up here too. It's not just about going through the Arctic, but going to the Arctic, and that's going to be a destination for, as we have a race for these resources. So I got a picture there kind of up on the right of a bunch of kids running. Where I sit in my office over at the Marine Exchange, I kind of look down at the school across the way, you know, the playground there. And man, when recess hits, everybody's like, I don't know what's going on. I think they're evacuating the building from a bomb or something. Kids come running out of there like crazy. And it's a race. They're getting to the swing sets. They're getting to the little courts where some of them are going to work together and play ball. And everybody's kind of got stuff. You see some kids playing together nicely. You see some kids playing on their own. That's what's going on in the Arctic. It's a race. And this is kind of a continuum. Those of you with military background will probably recognize the far left corner there from the joint pub that kind of talks about everything from cooperation to conflict, a continuum on that. And I think it's a great way to think about what goes on in the Arctic. How do we work with allies? What do we see as maybe adversarial? And where on the continuum, I think you can see different kinds of activity that are either cooperative or competition, and hopefully not to conflict, but we know that conflict, Ukraine-Russian war, which was brought up, is having an effect on this area that we're talking about right now, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And I will also talk about competition because this is a military setup, but not all competition should be thought of as adversarial. We have a lot of competition with some of our allies, with Canada, on some of the things, and competition doesn't mean it has to be adversarial. We can still be working together in areas where we compete and have different interests. That might be just a speech for America right now. I don't know. So this is data. We at the Marine Exchange, we're tracking boats. We're really focused on the Bering Straits right now. We've got a program that we're working with a lot of different partners on called Arctic Watch, where we're really focused on kind of getting some equipment, communications, tracking, and some procedures. And when I say that, it sounds pretty simple, and it is. This is done in a lot of places. This is done, if you were sailing in Southeast Alaska, you could look at the Voluntary Waterways Guide for Southeast Alaska, and it'll tell you where the ferries go and where people set buoys and deconflict certain things. Same with Prince William Sound and Cook Inlet and even the Aleutian Islands. There's a waterways guide for out there. All this focus that's come on the Arctic in recent years, and there's not even a voluntary waterways users guide for vessels up there. So if we all wanted to jump on a boat and we're like, well, what do we need to know? What are the concerns as we go up here? We don't have a waterways guide. I don't know how many millions and billions of dollars have been studying this area, and we don't even have some of the very simple constructs for the way things go. So we're trying to work to fix that and kind of voluntary measures that protect the environment, keep it efficient, and keep things safe up there. I'm going to break this down just a little bit, but this kind of spaghetti chart gives you an idea of what kind of traffic is going through there. And you can see the colors are really different on the two sides of the border, about 42 miles apart there between Russia and the United States. And the traffic's increasing. It's not a massive amount of traffic right now when you compare it to some of those other straits and sea lanes of communication that I was showing earlier, but it is increasing. And with what's going on with the weather and the receding of ice, it's becoming more and more viable, and it's also critical. And it's more critical to the other side, the Russian side over there, than it is to us for economic purposes at this time for the traffic. A lot of the traffic on the U.S. side, it's destination traffic. It's going up there and getting stuff out of the mines. It's providing oil to the communities that are up there. There's some cruise activity. There's some research activity. On the other side, it's business for Russia. They are, remember, it's not just a destination to go through, but it's a place to go to. Their national security is tied to the resources that they're producing out of this area, that they're pulling out of there, and to get what they have to markets so they can support their country. And that's really sums up why Russia is so interested and why you hear there's a military buildup up there. It's to protect what they see as something that's critical to their national security. I like this. I like this graph because we heard a lot about embargoes and stuff after the Ukraine war, and it shows a shift in markets is what this shows. And whenever there's a policy change or tariffs or embargoes, there's the effects of what they are. And sometimes the effects aren't always what we intend. And this really, what this shows, if we were to summarize this, is that a lot of that oil and natural gas and stuff that Russia was selling that's so critical to their national security, they've just shifted where it's going. And it's going a lot to China. And that's why this route is so critical through the Bering Straits to move those natural resources out of the Arctic and down to the markets for their national security. China, just to spend a minute there, you think China kind of looks at it, Russia says, oh, these are our resources that we need to get out and to support our national security. China looks at it like, hey, the world is our natural resources. We're going to go out, we're going to get as much, however we can, to get that back for our national security. And there could probably be a whole nother World Affairs Council meeting on China and what they're doing around the world to really bring it home to the motherland there. Everything from, is it legal, ethical, what's their strategy, and how's it being countered. And really not too much to go into for right now, but that is a important chess piece to be thinking about when we talk about this one region that we're talking about. So going back to Russia a little bit, this is just another highlight of, hey, they have a lot of resources up there. About 20% of their GDP, and some of the studies I've said, comes from this area, and Putin has said, this is important to me. I want to continue to increase what we're bringing out of there. I want to continue to build up and protect Russia's interest in the Arctic. So protecting the blue economy, as we talk about how important shipping is for national security, for economic security, it really is different when you talk about the blue economy depending on what country you're talking about. And that's what I was just saying. Russia is like, hey, we're going to use the sea to get as much as we can back to us. Russia's like, hey, we want to use the sea to use what we have to get us our economy going. And the U.S., we, in a lot of ways, we kind of have been the police of protecting the blue economy, not in U.S. waters, but really around the world. If you look at a lot of the activities that have gone on in the Straits of Hormuz, what's going on down in the South China Sea, another great topic to talk about, and combating China down there. But this also has got an important chart over on the left side. I gotta keep turning around and look at the screen, make sure I don't do this wrong. On the left side, where you can kind of see ice-breaking fleet capability. And what this shows you is that Russia has a fleet that far surpasses anybody out there. We're down the list quite a ways actually on our ice-capable fleet, and a lot of those icebreakers are on the Great Lakes, and we don't have that many that actually come and operate up in this region that we're talking about. This is a great slide. This came from Senator Sullivan's been using this staff, and you heard him talk about this topic. But this is military incursions, which is completely legal, into our EEZ, both from the air and from sea. A couple things to look at on here is that's of real interest is that there are some of these that are joint Chinese and Russia. I said there was unintended consequences of embargoes. We really forced a partnership between those two, where China's like, hey, we're getting resources from Russia. We're investing in infrastructure up there, and we want to make sure we're protecting that. We're showing that this is important to us, and you've seen these incursions where they've done a show of military force and transiting up, and this is in the U.S. EEZ. So this was, I didn't have this slide in here. I sent in my presentation on Wednesday as I was required to do, and then that day, article came out, this article over on the left side, about partnership with Finland and us going to work with them to start getting some icebreakers up here. It's been a long time practice. The U.S. is going to build U.S. warships in the U.S. Not just warships, military ships, Coast Guard ships are shipping. This is a big departure from that because we're behind in that chart of what we have for capabilities. Working with Finland to kind of close this gap, bridge this gap quicker because it takes a long time to build. This is going on. They announced that Finland is going to build some ships for the U.S. Coast Guard, and also going to help us get some of our shipbuilding infrastructure in the U.S. come over and provide some expertise and help us get some ships that are going to be able to patrol and provide security up in this region. The Storrs, which was just commissioned here in Juneau a few weeks back, maybe a month back, a couple months back. It was a commercial U.S. ship that was purchased by the Coast Guard and now is in the fleet and finished its first patrol here last week up in the Arctic. And just to show that we're focused on this, I think it's interesting. The Coast Guard changed the name of their districts all around the country. Those of you who are from here probably know the 17th district was the Coast Guard district that served Alaska. It now changed, its new name is the Arctic District. And I think that's pretty telling on what we're focused on and where things are going right now. And pretty apropos for today's, well, the next 2 days' presentations. So as you talk, and you're going to hear a great group of people coming up here with some amazing backgrounds that have been assembled to talk about some of the implications of some of the things going up in the Arctic, but it's not that easy. This is very, very complicated stuff that is really, like I said, interconnected to what's going on around the world, and impacts that aren't just in the Arctic or just in Alaska, but affect our nation, other nations, and it's not simple. It is very complicated. Each action has a consequence. What is the right path forward? A lot of different opinions on that, and a lot's at stake. And the challenges that are in this area that I said is so great to operate, the distances, the getting resources up there if something bad were to happen, an oil spill, a search and rescue, a cruise ship getting happened. What kind of resources are available to respond? Just right now, they evacuated Kotzebue a couple days ago. You may or may not know that. Most Alaskans probably know that. About 3,000 people. Woods Hole, Massachusetts, about 3,000 people. Newport, Rhode Island, 3,000. Saratoga Springs, New York. Telluride, Colorado. If there was a storm and we evacuated any of those places, it'd be all over the national news. There'd probably be some guy from the weather station, standing in a puddle of water with wind blowing on him, talking about what's going on every news station that's out there. They would be talking about, oh yeah, this is going on in Georgia, and there's power trucks from North Carolina coming to help. And not up here. Maybe we saw it on a little bit of news. It was a little thing up here, and there's no neighbor that's there to help. Alaskans have got to help themselves in a lot of regards. Everything else is a long ways away. Well, Russia's not that far, but I don't think they're coming over with any equipment to help out. So you think of just some of the basic services and how far away we are in our Arctic. That's just another complication, just another example of, hey, this is everything from what are our adversaries doing to what do we have up there for our U.S. citizens that live up there. And it kind of brings me here to the last phase, another military term, fog of war. We could get lost in the fog of war real easy on any one of these topics that we're going to talk about. On UNCLOS, you could get lost in the fog of war just talking about UNCLOS. You get lost in talking about, hey, we just need more resources up there. But when we think, I think it's very important to think about U.S. citizens, U.S. needs, along with big national strategic priorities. Bering Sea Resiliency Group just went to Washington, D.C. about a year ago, and you know what their number one concern was? They had concerns. Number one, food security. That's crazy when you think about that in the U.S. Communities up here, their number one concern, it isn't a Chinese invasion. It isn't, hey, how am I going to get food on my table? The salmon stocks are changing. Our ability to do our subsistence lifestyle, which is so important culturally to what we do, and not just culturally, practically. They don't have a Costco. They don't have Fred Meyer to go to there. Living off the land and being able to tap into the beauty and what's up there is how they live. And number one issue is food security. So think about that as we talk about ratifying big treaties with countries, what some of the people right here in the U.S., their number one concern is. And it's tough up there, and they are concerned about foreign presence, and we are concerned about conflict, and they're very concerned with conflict just between industry and subsistence activity, much less, a foreign power being up there. The way of life is being threatened. Just by some of the changes that are going on, natural changes, and by some of the human changes, more traffic, changing ice, needing resources that aren't there or maybe need to be developed more. And I think that kind of got touched on a little bit in the video with, I think it was in the vein of nuclear capabilities, but if we were to all get in a boat right now and head out here in Juneau and say on channel 16, help, I'm in trouble, somebody's probably going to hear us and be able to come get us. If that were to happen in the lower 48 off the coast, not only would you be heard, but you'd be heard by 3 different stations that would triangulate your position, and we'd know right where to go to get you. If you were to go up in a boat in the Arctic and get on channel 16 and say, help, I need help, God will hear you. That's about it right now. So we have some gaps that we need to close, not just in our ice-capable vessels, but in our capabilities that we have in the region. And I think it's important that you keep communities at the table. And that's why things like this are great, just to get everybody thinking about how complex this region is that we're talking about and what all the challenges are, and trying to understand all the different equities that are involved. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions on here.
If you have questions, please cue in right.
Yeah, Steve, Paul Foose here. So we talked about traffic in the Arctic. We've also got increasing traffic coming from Canada, right? And so all of your efforts are prevention measures. So here we are in Southeast Alaska. Are any of those prevention measures in place in Southeast Alaska? And what is the ratio of vessels that you cover by prevention and not, which are covered under OPA 90, the Oil Pollution Act of 1990. Are we covered here in Southeast Alaska?
Yeah, good to see you, Paul, and thanks for the question. So just to give Paul, everybody a little bit of background on the question Paul's answering. One of the things we do at Marine Exchange is, if something were to happen like the Exxon Valdez, it has a massive impact economically on the people. We're still cleaning up from something like that. When somebody takes out an underground cable, it closes off internet and maybe power, depending on what's under there. And the impacts cost millions of dollars to repair, and we're so tied to needing power and internet and things like that. And it used to be, we focused a lot on response. How are we going to clean up oil if it happens? How are we going to get this power repaired quickly? Well, one of the things we do is, hey, if you got $1 to spend, you're probably better off spending it on prevention. So we're looking at protecting those cables. Used to be a cable gets taken out, somebody would call us, GCI or whoever, and say, hey, we had a cable taken out at 10 o'clock last night. And we would go down, do a deep dive on traffic and say, well, it looks like Bruce was anchoring right in that area last night at that time. You might want to talk to Bruce. Well, now we're looking at those cables places and we're going, hey, it looks like Bruce is slowing down, and he might be getting ready to anchor. Hey, Bruce, just so you know, you're at a cable area right there. You might want to move a little bit Again, trying to prevent that from happening. Hey, instead of working on cleaning up an oil spill, identifying somebody who might be in trouble early where we can get a response, because it takes a long time to respond out here. Trying to keep people away from critical areas, critical habitats, areas to be avoided. So to answer your question, Paul, yeah, we do that in Southeast. We do it throughout Alaska, but there are still massive gaps. We're talking about more coastline than the entire lower 48. And the work is far from being done, and we need to continue to build partnerships, capabilities, procedures, guidance, even if voluntary, that says, hey, please avoid this certain area. And we find that industry especially is very responsive to that. They want to be good stewards. They want to do what's right. And so we're working on it, but the work's far from done, both here in Southeast, Central Alaska, out the Aleutian chain, and especially up in the Arctic. And that's why we have that Arctic Watch program going.
Maybe I didn't ask it quite correctly.
Please go to, Paul, go to the mic.
Ask it quite correctly. Are Canadian vessels shipping crude oil to Asia covered by your prevention measures in Southeast Alaska?
So, Paul, I don't know what program you're talking about exactly, but vessels that are coming to or from a U.S. port have to meet the national planning criteria, which says, hey, you need to have an OSRO, you need to have so much oil spill response equipment that can be on scene in a certain amount of time. It's been determined right now at this time that for Southeast Alaska, the OSROs that operate here can do that, can respond in time. In the Aleutian chain, they say they can't. So there's what's called an alternate planning criteria where they can enroll with something like vessel tracking to do that. Now, any vessel that's on innocent passage, meaning they're passing through U.S., our economic zone, there's no requirement for them to do that. That's kind of a little bit of a gap in that. But just to take what Paul's saying to another step, I will tell you that we have been working with some Canadian folks here very recently to work on coming up with some sea traffic management measures. It's something that actually we're doing out of Alaska here down in LA, LB, Oakland. We started it during COVID to kind of clear out that backlog up there. And we're talking about trying to help them with some queuing, which gets boats enrolled in a program. And once the boats are enrolled in a program, then you have ability to communicate with them. And then you can start addressing other issues like, hey, can you please watch this area to be avoided or something else? And we're going to see where that goes. But we do have some folks in Canada that we are working with.
Hey, Steve. One of your charts showed the vessel traffic going through the Bering Straits, and I'm assuming this is based on AIS data.
Great, yeah.
So two questions. One, not everyone runs AIS. You know, it's 400 gross tons or more. Military vessels will turn it off. And two, based upon the data you see, could you look at a crystal ball and say what changes are we going to see in the next 20, 30 years in types of traffic?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that clarification, and I should have gotten that in the presentation. All those vessels are vessels that are displaying AIS, and before I answer your question, I'll tell you that that's also vessels that are required that you mentioned. There's some that do some nefarious stuff, either turning it off or spoofing, and you can think about why somebody would do it, whether they're participating in illegal activity, they're trying to get around some kind of embargoes or something else. So you can come up with reasons why somebody would want to spoof their IIS or not display it when they should. So there are gaps. We don't see vessels that aren't on AIS. You get some radar to do that. We don't have radar up in that area that we use. So the biggest one that I can think of is fishing vessels and some of the smaller exploratory, non-commercial excursion boats, that go up there. So that's a gap that we don't see, and that is also two areas that I think are going to increase, that we're seeing for different reasons, that there's going to be more fishing activity. We'll see how that changes when the moratorium on fishing gets lifted in the Arctic, and we come up with some stuff, and we're definitely seeing more of those kind of recreational folks wanting to come up and see this area as ice opens up and explore the area. And the risks up here are real, and these aren't sandy beaches. These are, rocky shores, and there's not a lot of resources up there to do it. So there are a lot of risks to be addressed. Thanks for the question.
Any other questions?
Got a runner out there.
So Steve, thanks. Phil Lawler here. So you're describing a situation that we're all, by the definition of the conference, and it's right outside the back door, literally, these problems and challenges and risks in the Arctic. And the commercial requirements and the resources are there. So we didn't really ask you to plan for this, but I think it's interesting to look at. And I know we also have a cadre of lawyers and legal experts that have to deal with UNCLOS. We've got a lot of the same challenges and risks on the bottom of the planet, down in the Antarctic. Not as many people living there, maybe not as high demand, but I'm kind of curious in your sense, the way you painted the situation here, do you see that coming, or is it actually already going on in the Arctic, although not the focus of our conference today?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're making me feel guilty that I'm not doing stuff in the Antarctic, as that's not our focus. And I don't know how much of this sea traffic management, finding voluntary measures, what kind of protocols, and I also don't have a real good grip. I haven't looked at how much the traffic is increasing. I don't think there's the kind of race for resources and the kind of contentions that we have up here that are going to be emerging. But I will tell you that these practices and what we're doing up here have been looked at by other countries. What we're doing in the Marine Exchange with looking at boats and providing information to help voyages be safer, more efficient, is starting to be looked at as a best practice really around the world. I've spoken at many places about using the tools and technology to address some of these challenges. And we're kind of on the leading edge up here with a lot of the stuff we're doing. And it's, instead of us looking south, I think a lot of places are looking north to see what we're doing and how we're managing things up here. And it's critical to here. I talked about the blue economy. I mean, think of the Alaska, just how critical shipping is to us. Fisheries, stat for you, if Alaska was its own country, it'd be the 9th largest fishery in the world. The oil that we do have that comes up, that leaves here, and the fuel that feeds our communities, that stuff all tied to shipping, mining that goes on. Hey, welcome to Juneau. By the way, if you go to the grocery store, anything there on the shelf came in on a ship, the tourism that feeds a lot of these communities, that's all by the water. So protecting these waterways, these roads that are so vital to our economies is critical, and we're working on that.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, thank you. Yep. Hope I didn't go over.
That was Captain Steve White presenting An Orientation of Northern Waters. It was recorded October 10th, 2025 at KTOO on the unceded territories of the Occoquan on Tlingit-Ani as part of the 2025 Juneau World Affairs Forum, Unratified, the International Law of the Sea Treaties and their potential for protecting Arctic resources and cultures. Produced by the Juneau World Affairs Council and Veterans for Peace Chapter 100 in collaboration with KTOO. With support from Core Alaska Kensington Mine, Wastman & Associates, Ramada Inn,